Crashing sucks, and after the dust settles, you might be left with a mangled heap like this to deal with. So now what? What should you check, and what's the best way to proceed with the repairs? I'll walk you through my post-crash process in this episode of the Shop Manual. This episode of the Shop Manual is powered by DuraBoost batteries. Get 10% off your DuraBoost purchase at RevZilla.com with discount code 10OFF-TSM. In my unfortunately extensive experience, the post-crash program has 3 distinct stages. There is damage assessment, part sourcing, and then finally the repair. The first step is a thorough, extensive inspection to determine what needs to be replaced or repaired. You can't get a clear picture of the damage if your bike isn't clean, so if it's, say, dusty from low siding the track and sliding off into the desert, then you should give it a bat. Now grab a roll of masking tape and do a triage pass. On this first walk around, I'm just using the tape to flag areas that clearly need attention. Depending on the severity of the crash, some common damage to look out for includes rash or cracked bodywork and lights, bent levers and clip-ons or handlebars, dented tank, bent or broken foot pegs, scuffed case covers, and maybe even a twisted fork. That is the obvious major damage, but there's almost always more subtle, less evident injuries that'll bite you in the ass later once you think you have the bike fixed up. That's why it's important to do a second, more meticulous inspection. If there's destroyed bodywork or other parts, go ahead and remove them now and set them aside, but don't throw anything out until the project is complete. Busted panels often have hardware, grommets, and other little annoying bits and pieces that you can reuse rather than order. And the old parts often serve as a great roadmap for assembling the new stuff. It's also a good idea to snap pictures of assemblies before you take apart the puzzle, and I like to thread bolts back into their holes or bag and label them to limit confusion later. Now, back to our inspection. Revisit the taped areas and intensify and expand your investigation to surrounding parts that might have been affected. For instance, if the bodywork was smashed, then the metal mounting tab on the bike behind the panel might be tweaked. And if the foot peg bracket is bent, the bolts and maybe even the mounting lugs on the frame could be damaged as well. Other easy to overlook issues that may keep the bike from starting or make it unrideable include damaged or bent lever perches or crushed clutch, brake, or side stand switches, as well as abraded wires. Wheels can also get gouged and leak air or may even be bent, so make sure you spin them or at least roll them to check for straightness. If the bike slid much, then check to see if the bottom of the fork legs and the axle ends are beveled. There can also be hairline cracks in brittle cast aluminum parts like the handlebar clamps or the stock rear sets, and that stuff can be really hard to spot, so make sure you look closely. Keep in mind that just because something is damaged does not mean it needs to be replaced. Maybe it's still functional, it just looks bad, like this gas tank. A technique I use for expensive or hard to replace parts like rashed engine cases, rim lips, and fork bottoms is to smooth and contour the damage with a fine file or Dremel and then cover it up with a paint pen. I don't really expect a crash bike to look perfect again, so fix what you have time and budget for to make sure it is safe and rideable, and then call it good. Once you have assessed your bike, you can start thinking about replacement parts. You're going to want to make a list, and I find it helpful to print off a part schematic, compare it to what I've got, and highlight the stuff I need to order. As far as sourcing replacement parts, new OEM components are pretty much always an option, but that tends to be a pretty expensive approach. So don't be afraid to explore the aftermarket. You might be able to get parts like turn signals, levers, and mirrors cheaper from an accessory brand, or it might just be a good opportunity to upgrade some stuff. One of my favorite sources for parts is actually eBay. You can get good used parts at a great price, and you may even be able to buy a whole assembly, like a radiator with fan and hardware, or a complete headlight with bulbs, brackets, etc. Perhaps you've also seen full bodywork kits from overseas that are a fraction of the price of OEM plastics. I've installed a few of them over the years, from ultra cheap unpainted kits to sets with full graphics, and they've all fit well, so that's an option. All right, it's finally time to start putting your baby back together. If you were diligent with your inspection and part sourcing, then it should be pretty straightforward. However, it's probably been a while since you disassembled your bike, so make sure you're referencing those highlighted part schematics, your old parts, your bike's workshop manual, and any photos you took along the way. My final piece of guidance is to take a breath. Your bike may be ready to go, but are you? A lot of riders struggle with confidence after a crash. Hopefully you understand what caused it, you can analyze it, and you can strategize how to avoid it in the future. In any case, for those first few post-crash rides, it's a really good idea to go slow and take it easy, both because you're shaking down your motorcycle and your psyche. Hey folks, thanks for watching this episode of the Shop Manual. That was a bit of a difficult topic to talk about, but hopefully you found the information helpful, because it's not if you crash, it's when. And if you want to learn more about our perspective on crashing and injury recovery and getting back in the saddle after an incident, please scan the QR code on your screen or click some of the links in the description. And keep in mind that this show, as well as all the other videos we're producing, the Shop Manual, Daily Rider, CTXP, are funded by money that comes when you buy something from RevZilla. So if you need a new jacket or helmet, or you need parts for your bike, please keep RevZilla in mind. Thanks.